And good evening, everyone. I'm TJ Alt of I-45 Now, and welcome to our first of the candidate forums for the election season this year. But it won't be our last, obviously, as we get ready for the special elections that are happening here in November. Early voting starts on that on Monday, and we've got a special election happening in Dickinson for position council, position number 1, to replace the vacated seat after Scott Appley, councilman, position 1, passed away of COVID just a few months ago. As always, when we present these forums, we do so in partnership with the Dickinson Chamber of Commerce. And joining us is the president of the Dickinson Chamber of Commerce now, is Don King. Don, thanks for coming on with us. We appreciate, as always, our partnership with the chamber in putting these forums on.
Oh, well, thank you so much, TJ. We really do appreciate everything you do for us. On behalf of the Chamber of Commerce, I want to thank TJ and I-45 Now for the continued support they give to the Dickinson Chamber of Commerce, not just in this, but in everything that we ask for them to participate with. They take good care of us. I want to thank everybody for coming or for visiting with us tonight and being a part of this. We're so glad you could be with us. And I just want to say how excited we are that we've gotten such a good response for people running for this position. That's so exciting. We're so glad to have so many people that want to be a part of the leadership positions in the city of Dickinson. That's exciting for us. And I'm just really looking forward to hearing what they have to say tonight. I think it's going to be really a very enlightening evening.
And before we get into those topics here with them here tonight, I do want to talk about some things happening with the Chamber of Commerce. One of those things, folks maybe have been driving down State Highway 3 and see this and see the Save the Gazebo effort there. Tell us a little bit about what this is, Dawn, because some folks may have seen the sign, but not what this effort is about.
Okay, well, there's our sweet little gazebo. It's on the Village Green area. And that gazebo is a little worse for wear. And so it needs to be repaired, and it needs to be done before the damage gets to be really too cost prohibitive. And so the Chamber of Commerce saw a need in the community, as we like to do. We like to give one initiative back to the community every year, an improvement project. And so we saw this opportunity, not just to save the gazebo, but also an opportunity for people to see all of the civic organizations and leaders in the community that are always behind the scenes to get a lot of these things done. When you see landscaping, that's Keep Dickinson Beautiful. Historical Society does a lot. And the Rotary Club, the Pilot Club, the Optimist Club, they all work really hard and behind the scenes. So we thought that it would be a great opportunity for us to come together and get one project done together and put it in the middle of town so everybody can see that our community works well together. And so you also might have seen a little side sign that was Midgard Construction. That's who's going to be doing the restoration work for us. They won the bid. And so each of these community organizations has put money in, and there are 3 just community people who decided that they wanted to donate. And so we are still looking for donations. If anyone's interested, you can go to the chamber website, which is www.dickinsontxchamber.com. And there's a button you can push there and you can donate. There's no minimum amount. And we will it's too late to put it on the big sign, but we'll put it in our advertisements and our marketing that you are a part of the Save the Gazebo. And we're really excited because it's going to be beautiful. It's going to be painted. It's going to be painted white. The inside is going to be pale blue, and the concrete's going to be stained a dark blue. But we have this beautiful copper heron weather vane that's going to go on top of it. And it is going to be just beautiful and ready just in time for the Christmas holidays.
Great. We're looking forward to seeing that there. So if you want to find out more, go to the Dickinson TX, Dickinson TX Chamber. I'm sorry.
That's right. Exactly.
DickinsonTXChamber.com, and then you can make the direct donation. Another thing the chamber is working on as well as, speaking of the holiday season, is obviously the Festival of Lights going to be back. Thank goodness.
Yes.
We're glad after so many fits and starts of trying to get it back here, but go along with that, the Lights Up the Town grant program through the Chamber and the EDC there. Tell us about how that's going to work.
Well, this is an exciting program that the Dickinson Economic Development Corporation came up with 3 years ago. This is the third year, and they have funds put aside to do this. And last year, the Dickinson Management District joined in as well, and so now the EDC pays for half of the grants, and the Management District pays for the other half. And so that's just another example of how our organizations in the community come together to do great things. What it is the Festival of Lights has been going for a long time, and everybody comes in to visit the Festival of Lights. They've started to go into the Festival of Lights and then leave again. They don't go through our community. And so this initiative is for all of our businesses that want to light up their business throughout the Festival of Lights season, so that when people come to our community, they come to that event, they get in their car and they drive all the way through Dickinson, see how beautiful Dickinson is, get a look at all the beautiful lights and our businesses. And if for the businesses that want to participate in this, you don't have to be a member of the Chamber of Commerce to do it. You can just adhere to a few rules. And if you do that, you get up to $500 back in reimbursement for your lights and your electric cords and all of that. And that's another thing. You can go on our website, www.dickinsontxchamber.com, press the button for the Light Up the Town information, and there's participation information, the grant application. And it is just, we had 13 participate last year, which is an exciting for the second year. And we're going to have even more this year, and it's going to be just fantastic. So if you're a member, please participate. If you're just someone who likes to see Christmas lights, be sure to come through our town for Christmas.
Great. Don King, the president of the the Dickinson, I was with the Texas before the Dickinson Chamber of Commerce, and thanks for coming on in there. So now we go ahead and get things going and introduce our candidates for the night, each running for position 1 in the special election. They will fill the unexpired term of Scott Apley, who had passed away, as I said, of COVID in August. And then this will go through 2023. First up, we welcome the Reverend Johnny Simpson Jr., who will be on with us here. Kevin Edmonds, he's no stranger to these forums as well, joining us here today. Charles Marcus, the other candidate, and then Fred Linton. So 4 candidates joining us here tonight. And we appreciate, gentlemen, all 4 of you coming on with us here tonight. This will be, we hope, an informative night for everyone. We hope to go about an hour, and then every candidate will get a chance at the end. And just as a disclosure here, full disclosure, and I've explained this to everyone here as well. I always just like for folks to know up front, Fred Linton, one of the candidates here tonight, he and I have known each other since high school. We both grew up in Texas City. He lives in Dickinson now. Yes, so we already verified that. But we did grow up together. And so every once in a while you may hear me slip and say Freddie, because that's just the name I knew him as a kid, and his family close to mine. That doesn't help him much in this, as he knows, in running for office here as well. So along the way. And so I just wanted a full disclosure of how we do that. And for those of you who have not watched one of our forums before, this is how the format goes. This is pretty simple. It's a question and answer session all the way through. We have several topics here, but we don't have predetermined timings or actual questions laid out. What we ask here, we have topics. I start them off, and then a lot of the questions come from the answers of the candidates, and we try to have a conversation versus like one candidate only having 30 seconds and then a 20-second rebuttal. We want you to actually hear the context of what the candidates have to say. At the end of the forum, each of the candidates will have up to 3 minutes to give his presentation to you why he deserves your vote. And again, early voting starts on Monday, and we'll have the details of that. Dawn, thanks for joining us. We'll have you back on with us at the end of the show here. Now it gives us a chance, though, of getting into this. And thank you, gentlemen, for all joining us here tonight. As I told you all before we came on, and so our audience knows, I have numbers 1 through 4, not in that particular order, sitting in front of me right now. And so when I'm going to have each of you pick out a number. And from picking out that number, depending on the order that they're sitting in front of me here, is how we'll determine who gets to choose where they go at the end here. And so I'm going to mark it here so I remember as well of how this may go. And let me ask Kevin, since you've been in the race the most times here of running for office, I'll let you go first. You pick your number.
I think it'd be fitting to pick 3.
3, since this is your third time.
This is my third time,
right? Okay. And Johnny, let me give you a chance, Pastor Simpson.
2.
Picking number 2. All right. Marcus?
4.
4. All right.
Okay.
And Fred, that leaves you with 1.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say I'm going to pick 1.
Yeah, right. Too late. So how this was in the random orders here is that how I lined them up is how we'll do it at the end. Marcus picked the number 4. That's actually the first number we had laid out here. So, Marcus, you get to pick whether you want to go first, second, third, or fourth at the end of the night in your final pitch to the voters.
I choose to go 4th.
You choose to go last. All right. Next up, Johnny picked number 2. He was in the second slot there. So you have a choice of first, second, or third, Pastor.
I'll go 3rd.
You'll go 3rd. All right. Kevin, then you have a choice between first or second.
I'll take number 2. I'll stick with the status quo.
All right. And then so, Fred, you'll be going first at the end then as well. So we appreciate you all joining us here tonight. So let's get into the question and answer session here. And we're going to start off here with you, Fred. And it's a basic question here. Why did you decide to run for office, and what do you think makes you most qualified to hold the seat on city council, given one, in your particular case, you've never held public office before?
That is correct. I would say that I'd say probably the best way to describe it is that, I grew up with a family that impressed upon me the importance of giving back to the community, and public service is one way I can do that. My background is, I grew up in Texas City. I was educated as an engineer, and I guess Boy Scouts taught me the concepts of honor, integrity, honesty, and I also have a great respect for science. I solve technical problems for a living, and feel that I can assist the community by applying that skill set to making well-informed decisions and to provide, solutions that benefit the greatest good. I enjoy helping people. I enjoy helping animals. I have 2 rescue dogs. No good deed goes unpunished. And if elected, I hope to make the community of Dickinson a better place to live for all of us.
All right. Thank you, Fred. I appreciate it. And Pastor Simpson, we'll give you a chance now to make your pitch to the voters. Not your pitch to the voters, but answer that question of why you think you're the best selection to be elected to this position, sir.
Sure thing. Thank you, first off, TJ, for having us on this forum, and thank you to Don as well for putting it together. I think what makes me qualified to run for this position is I have a host of experience already working in the community. I'm not from Dickinson or the area or Texas for that matter, but I got here as fast as I could. And since I've been in Dickinson, I've served as treasurer for the Galveston County Long-Term Recovery Group. I've served as vice president for Mainland Community Partnership. I'm currently the president of the Dickinson Management District. I've served on the committee to hire our new city manager. I've served on the committee for selecting the firm for the comprehensive plan and been on it. I've also been on the recount committee, and I've served on the board of directors as well for M.I. Lewis. I've been very active in the community, and it's one of those things where the more you serve, the more you want to serve. And I feel like having experience, especially dealing with taxpayer funds as part of the management district and serving on so many city communities, committees and countywide committees and working with all the various government entities that I have an experience and kind of know a little bit about the ebb and flow of city government.
Gotcha. Thank you, Pastor. I appreciate it. Let me go to you now, Kevin. And this is going to be your third try running for office here. You've just nipped out at times to making the runoff, and it's always a multi-candidate field. It seems like every time you run there. But why go for it again? And folks are going to be familiar with you from the past campaigns and the like. But why go for it again? And what makes you more qualified? Given to, and not to knock the effort, but given to the voters haven't been willing to say that's our guy for council in the past when you have run.
I think, part of that is I'm still new to the community, too. I've only been in Dickinson for about 6 years. So I think that contributes a lot to it. So me getting out and being able to participate in our current government the way I do, and with the Board of Adjustments and most recently the Economic Development Corporation, it's given me an opportunity to become more familiar with the citizens. And so I still feel that I have something to offer here. So, and that's why I continue to run. I think I bring a leadership experience, my business experience. Besides being a health and safety environmental professional, I'm also a builder and developer. And as we continue to grow, I think I can bring that experience to the city to help us grow effectively and strategically. And that's why I want to do it.
Gotcha. Kevin, thanks a lot. And Charles Marcus up now, joining us, and he's our fourth candidate to talk tonight. And Charles, same question to you here. You, again, relatively new to the area. I mean, super new to the area compared to the others here. Why did you decide to run? And what makes you think the best choice to be elected to office?
Well, I end up making a final determination to run simply because the neighborhood I'm in seems to be a little bit left behind when it comes to infrastructure and some of the other things that are going on in the city of Dickinson. And no one seemed to have a voice at all. And I initially wanted to be on the planning and zoning, and I applied for that. And when the position for city council opened up, I thought that maybe I could probably do more good if I was able to get on the city council. My entire personality type is a quote that I use often to describe myself, which is swift to hear, slow to speak, and slow to wrath. And if you have those qualities, it behooves you to use it to bring about the betterment of the area you live in and for the city.
Thank you all for that. And first question up after that though comes into one, and I'm going to stay with you on this, Charles, and because you're the floodplain management over in Lake City, so but it's a topic that is hot in Dickinson, has been for a while. Flood mitigation in the city of Dickinson. How much have you looked at that topic, and what's being done now you think is effective? What's being done you don't think is effective? And what would you like to see down the road as we look at things 5 years, 10 years down the line?
I think a lot about the flooding in Dickinson because during Harvey, I was in Phoenix, and it seems like every newscast, all I saw was the city of Dickinson flooding. And I started thinking to myself, something has to be done, because with that type of exposure to the rest of the country, no one is going to want to move here or bring their family here or start a business here. And the city they've done a few things like desnagging the bayou and removing trees and that type of thing. And there's also the study that's going on right now with Clear Creek and Dickinson Bayou. And they have some solutions that could mitigate some of the flooding, like the detention storage areas and those type of things, and widening the channels. But I think in the end, what's going to have to happen is something that I don't think anybody at the city wants to think about. Nobody that lives here wants to think about. is that the flood zoning, the flood ordinances are going to have to be revamped. They're going to have to adopt new ordinances to be in line with the new Atlas 14 that's going to be coming down the pike. Because when that thing comes, we don't want to be sit flat-footed and not prepared to what to do. And it's just a bullet we're going to have to bite. It's going to probably raise flood insurance. This is some of the property values would be affected. But in the end, it's a matter of reducing the amount of property damage and loss of life. And the only way to do that is that the current flood ordinances are going to have to be looked at more closely.
Did we lose TJ?
No, I'm sorry about that. My mic was on, but it just wasn't going through. So I'm talking away. So let me just ask you though, Charles, is that when you talk about flood ordinances, you're also talking about building codes changing?
Yes, also talking about building and engineering codes as well, because anything new that's being built in the city, what the solutions that they've come about with, some of it's kind of out there, like the tunnels and that type of thing, and that will help with the flooding along the bayous. But when you start talking about neighborhood flooding, it's not going to stop raining more, and we're in an environmental situation now where it's going to be more severe storms and more frequent. And NOAA has come up with this Atlas 14 precipitation frequency data, and they're going to be coming down with this thing, and everybody's going to have to get on board. And I just hate to see us scrambling to help save lives and property damage.
Kevin, same question to you, but let's go ahead and talk about the topic that Charles brought up, which is about having to change maybe some ordinances, building codes and the like. As flood mitigation, how are you going to, if elected to council, address flood mitigation overall? Where do you see it now? Where do you see it headed? What's good, what's not? But also to talk about, Charles, about are there going to have to be changes in the city codes to adjust on property building and the like to lessen flood issues?
Look, I imagine that there's going to have to be changes as anything progresses, not just building codes, but as the entire city grows, you're going to create new problems. And so you're going to have to find points of mitigation every time something new shows up and becomes a hot topic of conversation. But the city's in this mode right now where everything we build, we're having to rise because I think 85% of the entire city of Dickinson is actually in a floodplain today. So, some people are able to mitigate their circumstances through buildup. I have a little bit of problem with that. If you don't know I have a problem with taking fill from one area of a watershed and displacing it and putting it in a new watershed. There needs to be some level of accountability where fill comes in so that you're not negatively impacting your neighborhoods. And I think that's super important. If we're going to work around and try to find ways to mitigate those issues, I think you just have to make a point of accountability to the developers when they're coming in to do the work.
And when you say a point of accountability, because this is something I know that League City has struggled with over the years, and talking about a lot of cities are. But let me ask you, narrow down a little bit on that, Kevin. When you say hold them accountable, is this something you would say when any type of new development comes in, there's gonna have to be better infrastructure, better detention and retention ponds put in that are gonna have to come not at the city's expense, but at the developer's expense?
Yeah, so for a long time, I think a lot of cities have required developers to provide more green space and actually using some of that green space as detention in their subdivision. So you have a double use. You see parks on the west side of town, on the far west side. I think George W. Bush Park. I think that's one big giant detention pond. If you actually look at it, when it's not being used for that purpose, though, it's a nice little park to play in. And I think you're going to find that you're going to need to have developers think about that green space and how they can use that to mitigate flood opportunities within their subdivision and the subdivisions situated next to them.
For those of you just joining us, we saw a huge jump in our audience here in the last few minutes. You're watching the candidates forum for those seeking council position number 1 in Dickinson. Early voting begins on Monday. The election is in November. Joining us are the candidates, Kevin Edmonds, who you just heard from, Fred Linton, Johnny Simpson, and Charles Marcus. Pastor Simpson, let me go to you now on this question about flood mitigation, and let's delve down into that. What do you see it's being done now, and that's working, and then what you think is not working? I wanted to kind of bring in too. We'll dive down with all one too, but the part that Charles brought up about ordinances being able to address things, but Kevin addressed that in a different way too, to talk about, there's a lot of new growth coming into Dickinson, some of it right in the heart of what we used to call old Dickinson, and that putting more of the responsibility on the developers to put in better infrastructure and the like as well. And I wanted to get your response to that, sir.
Sure thing. I want to say, for starters, that I saw firsthand, as many of the other candidates did, the devastation from Hurricane Harvey. And as serving as treasurer of the Galveston County Long-Term Recovery Group, we're still recovering. There are still people whose homes were damaged by Harvey that are still in need of repair. That's why we haven't dissolved the Long-Term Recovery Group, one of many reasons why we haven't dissolved it. So I would say some of the things that I see going on right, new construction is elevated. Either the building itself is elevated, or they're bringing in dirt in some of the new subdivisions, like Bayou Maison and a little bit further down 517. Those houses are on a little more dirt. I'm seeing larger culverts being built and ditches being cleaned out at a faster rate and more frequently. I'm cautiously optimistic about the study and the Bayou Watershed Group and the work that they're doing as well, and the money that's coming potentially for infrastructure. And the money that we've already seen. I think those are some of the things that are doing well. I would say I'm not sure if ordinances are the way to go solely. I would like to see us as a city walk out a comprehensive plan to completion that includes some of the mitigation and control. I would like to also put some responsibility on the developers, but I think you put that responsibility on the developers by having a clear plan and a clear vision. The trouble that you can run into with trying to do ordinances is, as council turns over, everybody has new ideas, new resolutions, new things they want to try, and then all of a sudden you've got a book full of ordinances that may contradict each other. So I'm not sure if strictly going to ordinances would be the best course of action, but I think participating in the study and also trying to come together with Texas City and League City and the county, partnering with all these organizations, so that way we're not getting the water coming south from League City and the water coming north from Texas City, making it worse for us.
Well, when you bring up Harvey, that turned out to be kind of the scenario that played out there. Not only just the water that was coming down on Dickinson, but the water coming from all directions from the other communities, essentially draining off into Dickinson, which exacerbated the problem there. Fred, let me ask you this, and we are going to stay on the flood mitigation for a while here, but let me ask you, as you look at flood mitigation issues within Dickinson, what do you see that's working right now that the city is already implementing or looking at? What's not working, and where do you see as maybe one of the bigger areas that needs to be addressed in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, I have firsthand experience with one of the new subdivisions that was built behind this house that I live in now. Was built in early 70s. And the property behind me was an open field. And I moved in actually 2 weeks before Ike. Was lucky enough to not run into flooding during Ike, nor Harvey. But the Bayou Maison subdivision is built right behind my house. So as soon as that started, one of my neighbors was a retired civil engineer. I got with the city, found out their process, how the city has their own civil engineer. The developer has their own civil engineer. Those two civil engineers work together towards a solution, a drainage solution for stormwater. That's what they did here. They because the development was not only a higher elevation, they worked that into the plan to make sure that they weren't going to adversely impact the existing subdivision, which was obviously a lower, elevation. So I see that some of this is obviously in place. It looks like some of the developers are following the rules that are in place. But one of the things that I would be most interested in doing, if elected, I would want to get with the civil engineer that works for the city and verify the overall design that we have for the drainage of the city. Of course, because of my job and my background, I tend to look at a lot of problems from a technical perspective. So the first thing is to verify that the current drainage solution that the city has is the best one possible. Once that is covered, then we pursue with the next step, and that is maintenance of that solution, removing vegetative matter from the various tributaries, bayous, and drainage and man-made drainage canals, and also addressing some of the human debris. Trash. There's some areas of town that I've noticed that people were dumping their trash, mattresses and whatnot. They don't seem to stay there that long, so it looks like the city is doing a pretty good job of following up on that and making sure that those waterways are clear. And then I also, I heard Kevin mention, about the increased flood insurance or the changing flood insurance profile that we're exposed to, because these storms we're experiencing 100 and 1,000 year storms, but they're not happening every 100 and 1,000 years. So, we need to just be aware that is coming down the pike, that the flood insurance for this area is going to change, and the building codes are obviously going to need, follow suit. So, and then as far as ordinances are concerned, I think it's good to have the ordinances, Mr. Simpson's point that, as the council changes, different ideas come and go. There must be a way that the council can agree on an ordinance that is going to have some sort of longevity, maybe a 10-year or 20-year flood plan for the city. But the first thing I do is get with the experts, the civil engineers, who are implementing, coming up with the designs and implementing it for the city.
And you've all kind of touched on the point of ordinances and how they're adjusted. It's a good point, though, talking about any change. I mean, there was a plan being put in place when the last city manager had to resign, was forced to resign after some legal woes and some internal dismay. But at least on flood mitigation, there were some things moving forward that got held back. You have the turmoil that I want to call it turmoil, but a lot of changeover in council. Let me ask you all, and I'll start with you, Kevin, on this. Is that Fred brought up a good point? A long-term plan. How do you get a plan put in place that will be stayed with for a while? Noting that some things will have to get adjusted, but sometimes the political will won't stick around for more than a term, maybe two. And if elected council, how do you do that? Because you'll be on at least if you win, you're on. Whoever wins this position is on for 2 more years.
So it's my understanding that the city has a plan or has a rating with the National Flood Insurance Program, right? And so I think that mostly is going to be part of your backbone for why you are consistent in the practice of your flood mitigation policy. It came up in a conversation about about a project that was coming up on the west side of town. One of the councilmen brought up his concern about affecting our key rating for fire on that project. It is the same scenario here. So you have other federal policies that do have influence on your local policy, and I think that helps keep things in line.
Johnny, let me ask you this, kind of the same question here. Is that how do you get a plan that stays in place, that can stay in place, get changes made, but also not go out the window and become gathering dust on the shelf because of the political whims of the council at the time?
I think it starts with the having a actual comprehensive plan in place. I go to a lot of city council meetings, and you're right, the political whims can change, especially as council turns over. But I feel like if there's a plan in place and a plan that is able to be executed by the city staff, that is one of the ways to try to make that. I mean, we had a comprehensive plan before, but it wasn't, that was not as in depth to my understanding as the one that we're engaging in now. Also working with the city manager to create certain standards and certain processes that are automated, that are not necessarily subject to the whims of the people. If we have certain processes in place that the city can hold to long before it even has to go to council, I think that can help protect some of the long-standing deals that will benefit the city going forward.
Same question to you, Fred. How do you, if elected, ensure that there's a plan in place? Because, flood mitigation is not something that gets done before the next election cycle. It is something that sticks around, and, you're dealing with it 10 years from now. If anything, for example, the Ike Dike plan or the storm surge, we've just really, a study released this last week shows it's, we're talking about 23, $1 billion or whatever it is going to be, and it's going to take 20 years to build. And that's just, that's one project. Obviously, it's a massive one. But, flood mitigation projects take a while. If you're elected to council, how do you see it that you put a plan in place that will last beyond even when you're out of office?
Well, there has to be some sort of mechanism to allow these ordinances to sustain that amount of time for projects such as this, because of what you stated. It's this problem is not going to go away. It is going to continue, and we can't allow a changing political climate to overrule the drainage solution that is going to help us through these times. And also, I'd like to mention that, the city has, the flood mitigation plan. And the city has a plan, and I've read through it. It's pretty lengthy. But, you know how much I love reading technical documents. So I believe
was just about to get a show of hands of how many have actually read that document as well among the four of you.
It was
Charles said iffy. John, well,
I'll ruin the ending for you. But anyway, essentially, it broke down into it was a good synopsis of the community, and it didn't go into the engineering specifics of how those solutions are arrived. But essentially, it looked like a census report. We have about 62 miles of streets, and then ditches that need to be maintained along those streets. The culverts for drainage. But as far as the initial question that you mentioned, I don't want to get too off point on this. Like I said at the beginning, there has to be some sort of political or legal mechanism within the city council's realm to allow some of these ordinances to outlive, the changing of the guards.
And that's always the tough one for there. Charles, let me ask you here, and in taking in this and going into another level with that. Fred said something about, making sure the ditches are maintained. there is an ongoing issue within the community of Dickinson. I say community here because then you have the city side of things, and then you have just outside of the city limits. Much of the responsibility goes to other entities to take care of some of those ditches that people think are quote unquote Dickinson, but are actually outside the city limits. When those get overgrown, it's either the county, the WCID. Is there a time of getting all the parties responsible for just the current infrastructure to sit down and get some type of agreement in place where those simplest of things, I say simplest, that's maybe too easy of a term here, but those basic things get taken care of on a more regular basis, where it seems like not each entity is making its own decision here, that there's an actual plan just for those things to get taken care of.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough when you have to depend on other agencies when they're not taking care of what they should take care of, and that's where we have to develop an ongoing and, dare I say, intimate relationship with the county and with the state and everyone else that's involved with this thing, so that when we call those guys or we sit down with those guys and we let them know, hey, we need to come up with a plan to keep these ditches and culverts clear. We need to have like I said, an ongoing relationship with them. We need to develop a good relationship and have some people that are in the city that can pick up a phone and make a phone call and get some stuff done.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And Kevin, let me ask you, and I'll be coming back around to everyone on this one, is it high time now, maybe, when it, particularly since flood mitigation has become such a big deal, that at some point there's some sit down and, a lack of a better term, a coming to Jesus meeting with the WCID about some of the ditches and the like that they're responsible for, and it gets in and says, listen, we need a plan put in place, and you need to bring it to council so we're on board with it too, so we know what's happening.
TJ, I didn't hear the first part of your question, and I want to make sure I get it all. Sure.
Is it high time, since not everything is the city's maintenance issue? Some of it falls in the WCID number one. Some of it falls into the realm of the county. But is it time now to have a time to get where it becomes more of a city responsibility overall to kind of take the lead on that? Maybe the entities still do it, but the city just takes the lead to say, hey, listen, we got to get this done. So here's the plan we're going to tell you.
Yeah. So like we do have a master plan within the city. There is a drawing up at City Hall, and there are numbers on it. And I think we could share those numbers with the other entities that have impact on us for sure, and figure out where each of those entities might have a gap, and the way we can participate maybe a little bit more, or maybe they can help us a little bit more in filling in those gaps to make sure that our plan is perfected and it works as intended.
Yeah. Fred, how about that? Of a, how do you make sure that plan does in place? Because not the city council, the city itself won't be the other entity that has to make sure these things get taken care of.
Right, you're going to have to work with the other, the surrounding entities such as, WCID1, and then also, I'm not even, I'm uncertain if WCID1 covers some of the unincorporated areas that are, they're connected to Dickinson. One of the things I did mention earlier that's somewhat related to this is the impact. Actually, Charles mentioned it earlier. The impact from some of the communities that are upstream from us. Because this
Johnny, but give credit where it's due here.
Yeah.
Charles is making it, but I want to give Johnny credit on that.
Yeah, so Johnny's getting credit. I just met all these guys, so I apologize. But so anyway, upstream is an element that needs to be factored in here. It's a factor in the solution. Oh gosh, what was I was going to mention? The overall solution that was identified in the document, that's on the city website, was talking about addressing some of the issues in those unincorporated areas. But it'd be good to get with the powers to be, and not just the WCID 1, but also the surrounding cities, surrounding communities, League City, City of Texas City, and and work together in some of those areas that are overlapped. Because I know that the far east side of Dickinson, Texas City and Dickinson rub up against each other, and some of those ditches, they don't care about city limits. Some of those drainage ditches out there. So. Anyway, that's, working with the surrounding communities and entities that are responsible, also at the state and the federal level as well. But local communities trying to work together to provide a solution, because we're all going to be impacted the same when these storms come through.
Pastor Simpson, let me ask you here, as someone who sat on many a board, there's a hard enough time sometimes to get the different boards in Dickinson to agree with one another on something. Every one of these forums I hear, we need to partner, we need to work together, we need to communicate. It's one thing to say that. In fact, one of our viewers even said it's one thing to have plans. You got to make sure it actually happens. So it comes down to this. You can talk about meetings and planning all you want, but after a while, you start beating your head against the wall. I mean, you've seen it where just entities council doesn't get along with this board or something like that, and something major gets stalled. I mean, I think we're still waiting on the development of Dickinson Bayou and what we're going to do down there. I mean, that's been talked about for years. So let me just give you a chance. How do you, if elected to council, make sure that cohesion goes, and what's an action plan if elected? I'm going to give everyone a chance to talk about that, but I wanted to start with you, Johnny.
Thanks. So leaving, even if you leave the drainage situation aside, the organizations need to sit down and meet as is, and on a regular basis. I've been on the management district since 2018, and I recall having one joint meeting where it was city council, economic development, management district, and the water district all together. And there was talk about doing this again, but there's been some staff turnover since then, so it hasn't happened. And I only recall one joint meeting with city council and the management district since I've been on. There needs to be joint meetings just to get business done, and not just asking a letter or asking for someone to fund a certain thing. But I think we need to work together even just to get the business done. I would say that I think if elected city council, there's already a closer connection between council and the management district off the bat. But I believe that we need to be able to meet with the other organizations to get business done in general, and that way we're not stepping over each other's toes or running into certain things like that. So I'm all for sitting down with the other boards and trying to hash some things out and coming up with a plan, not just for drainage, but for everything. And just because an area is unincorporated now doesn't mean it can't end up being a part of Dickinson later. So we can't ignore those areas and pretend like that's not our problem and wash our hands of it if a petition was filed or something else happened, and that becomes our problem. So we can't ignore it going forward. But I do believe we need to sit down with one another and meet regardless, not just for drainage, but to get business done.
And Johnny, you bring up a point I was going to transition to. We'll do it now anyway. And Kevin, let me go to you on that. There are times in Dickinson, it seems like entities, all appointed boards and the EDC or, they're all there and everyone's saying they're doing the great thing for Dickinson. But then when it comes time to get together and get something done, a fight breaks out or so-and-so gets their feelings hurt. Next thing you know, someone's removed from the board we've seen a lot of that over the years. If elected to council, how do you go along about what Johnny mentioned there of this kind of cohesion just on the day-to-day basis? Let's get beyond flood mitigation. Let's get the day-to-day business that needs to be done. Economic development, major things. That doesn't happen in a vacuum. And you know this from sitting on that board. How do you make sure that all the entities get on the same page at some point? Not, cookie cutter yes men type things, but how does it happen?
Look, I think it just starts really and truly with the open conversation, and more than just council meetings and management district meetings, maybe like real workshop type meetings where you can literally sit down in an open forum and have some real discussion about some real issues and develop a real plan so that you can do those things and then be able to take action on them. And everybody's hopefully working in the same direction. The personalities, those things can be worked out. Most of that some of that might just be a misunderstanding of cause and effect. And I think just having conversation a lot of times can help mitigate those issues.
And it becomes tough too when you're talking about, the conversations being had. A lot of times, the only folks paying attention to it are the folks that are already kind of involved. I don't know of many people who, for example, will attend a management district meeting, city council meeting, EDC meeting. I don't know if the cemetery board is still around like it used to be back in the day. Well, Lamarck has one still, but I'm talking about all the different planning and zoning and all that. So let me ask you, Charles. I mean, it's a tough thing. It's a lot going on for one person to keep track of, even if you're elected. If elected, how would you go about making sure that all the entities that have a say, whether it's the school district, the management district, the EDC, how all these entities get together and move forward as a community versus kind of everyone kind of doing their own thing?
Well, you have to have a first and foremost a keen ear in listening. A lot of issues happen simply because there's underlying things that are going on that you're not privy to. And if you listen close enough, and if you engage enthusiastically and with a desire to come up with a solution, you'll find out what the underlying issues are. And then once you get to that point, then you can approach people without an antagonistic view about what's going on. And when all that is rested to the side, you can typically get people to sit down and come up with a schedule and come up with the ambition to want to take care of these problems.
Does it come to you, Fred? It has to be an action plan. Quit the talk, get it done.
Excuse me, I didn't hear you. I'm sorry.
No, I was asking Fred.
All right.
Follow up to you there. Same question though to you, Fred. Is it if elected to council, how do we get beyond just the talking and saying, all right, let's get it done?
Oh, as some of you know, I work at NASA, so I'm very familiar with bureaucracies. I try to, the goal would be to minimize that. However, the point is well taken that we do need to schedule a meeting to get all these entities together. As far as the personality conflicts, there are, it's always good to take a step back, and think about, why we're doing this. And it's for the community, to solve problems for the local community. And so, you take a step back, let the emotions settle down and get back to business. And the business is solving problems. As far as the specific mechanisms that would be required for that, I assume it would be as simple as getting everybody's calendar together and scheduling a time for these the people that are members of these committees to get together and discuss all this.
Yeah, it's easier said than done, and I know Johnny and Kevin can comment on this from their personal. I don't know how many times I've seen the committees y'all serve on trying to come to council and saying, "Hey, we met on this," and the next thing you know, well, we're going to delay that for a while. And I know it's frustrating when you get to work. We are going to go long, folks. I told all the candidates we stayed on this one kind of topic and morphed into another one, but that's the format of this. Hopefully, can all y'all stay with us till 8:30? I don't want to get it past anyone's bedtime or children not getting to bed on time, those type of things along the way. We could talk about flood mitigation infrastructure and the like all we want, but unless you have the money to do it, it is tough. Dickinson, in many ways, is still trying to gain its economic footing since Harvey. And Kevin, I'm going to start with you on this one. Economic development. what needs to be the economic development plan for the city of Dickinson? I'll start with you, Kevin.
I think the EDC is working on a plan also, separate from the city's comprehensive plan. And I think first you need to figure out who we want to be in the comprehensive plan section of it, and the EDC's plan and that plan be able to meld together. And I think that's our goal right now, is develop part of this plan in conjunction and with the city's comprehensive plan to make some real strategic moves and open up some situations for future development. It's important that we are able to do that.
Charles, same question to you. What do you foresee as being the economic development plan for the city of Dickinson?
Actually, I have kind of a soft spot in my soul here in Dickinson for the center of town, and right now there's one thing I think is probably desperately needed and should be focused on a bit more, and that's the State Highway 3 overlay. I mean, the center of town is the heartbeat of Dickinson. We need to get some more small businesses in the center of town to help provide economic growth. Most cities, no matter how they started, how large they all started from the center of town and worked their way outward. And if we can offer, small business people here in Dickinson the same type of incentives that larger companies seem to get, I think that would go a long way in helping to not only revive our economic situation since Harvey, but to help us grow further.
Would you then be open to, you talk about the incentives a lot of times, and you bring up a good point that things on the west side of town they'll kind of grow on their own because that's where the land is and that's where the new development can go. But if a business came to the city via the EDC first and then came to the city council and said, we would like to have incentives to come to your town, would it be something you would be willing to say as a member of council, listen, we'll offer incentives, we'll even up the ante a little bit, but you've got to put your location in that heart, in that overlay district, as you talk about, to offer some added incentives to bring into the heart? Would that be something you'd be in favor of?
To improve the center of town, I believe that you look at all the numbers and you go over everything really well, and you don't give away too much to incentivize those folks to come into town, but to start in the center of town and build outwards to provide jobs for people that live in that area, and to basically turn that area of town into a place where people can actually walk or bike to work. I'd be willing to look at some added incentives. Yes.
Particularly if you try to walk or bike now, it'd be awfully dangerous from Dickinson to any of the local thing. That's a good point too. Fred, let me go to you on that as well. As you look at the economic development plan for the city of Dickinson, what are your priorities and where do you see that going, and what would you push for?
Once again, looking at the documents, the city budget is right around just over 30 million. As far as incentivizing the businesses, you look at the city of Dickinson and you try to find what are our strongest points. What's what is going to pull people into this community? One of the biggest things we have is the bayou. And looking at some of the parks on the bayou, maybe, that's only going to do, it's only going to provide part of the incentive for these businesses to come in. They're going to be looking at a low tax base, crime-free area. Luckily, we're doing good with that according to the census statistics on crime in this area. Cleaning up the Highway 3, the intersection of 517 and Highway 3 is pretty much the nucleus of the community. And, right there by City Hall, out on the west side, as you stated, TJ, is a little bit more open property. Some of the newer businesses are out there, lined up along all the way to 646. the east side of town is somewhat neglected. So that may also be an area right there off of 517 on the east side as you get to the Texas City limits on the way to 146. But the Bayou and low tax base, low crime, and also Dickinson has a very interesting history as well. I mean, it wasn't incorporated until the late 70s, but there were people in this area, the 1800s. But just trying, sitting down with the committee, trying to look at the strongest points that that this community has, and the Economic Development Committee. I have looked at that and looked at some of the ideas. I like some of the ideas that they've offered. Maybe potentially related to It was related to the Bayou. It was related to the Bayou, possibly some sort of canoeing business, but obviously that's going to be small potatoes. We're more interested in what's going on down the main corridors at 517 and Highway 3. We'd have to sit down and come up with some more ideas, but just spitballing it right there. That's, the Bayou is the major draw for this community.
And that was going to be the next topic. But Johnny, let me give you a chance for you to talk about your vision for economic development. But if you would, then dovetail into, because there's the talk of developing Dickinson Bayou. We keep hearing that over and over again. There's been efforts to try to promote that. One of the trouble spots of that is so much of it is private residential land right now. So how do you make that an economic engine? But let's start first with your vision for economic development. And from that, go ahead and morph into talking about where do you see Dickinson Bayou playing into that plan?
Certainly. So in this situation, economic development and infrastructure go hand in hand. You can't bring new businesses into a city if the city is not desirable to them. And so we've got to partner with outside entities, TxDOT, the county, the state, possibly even federal funds, to improve our infrastructure so that our city becomes more attractive to businesses. As far as economic development goes, there's a lot going on with economic development. First of all, the Economic Development Corporation is going to have to roll out a new strategy. The census numbers came out, they're coming out, and Dickinson is going to be above 20,000 population. Because of that, we have to switch from retail as an economic development entity, from retail to primary job creation. And I don't know if Dickinson has the space or if the citizens want to see more light industrial warehouses and things of that nature coming into the city. So that needs to be worked out before we move forward when it comes to economic development. There's also, quite frankly, some personnel issues. The last 3 or 4 city council meetings, the council has gone into executive session about the Economic Development Corporation. I'm not privy to what's going on in there because it's done in executive session, but there's obviously something that needs to be addressed with that. And finally, there is an open investigation being conducted by the Galveston County District Attorney. So all of that needs to be addressed before we really work into trying to work on a plan to attract businesses. But I am for, once we get past those issues, trying to sit down to figure out how we tackle economic development as a whole. The Economic Development Corporation is a type B, used to be called a 4B corporation, and so things change. There may be some things that have to go directly through city council in order to come into the city, or possibly through the management district or some other mechanism, because it would no longer be able to go through the type B corporation. But all of that could be hashed out. Also, in terms of building around the Bayou, you're right, there are a lot of property issues going on with areas next to the Bayou. One of the things that I think is a efficient way to kind of highlight the Bayou is to make more access points. We're in the process, and by we, I mean the Dickinson Management District, we're in the process of of trying to create some more access points by negotiating some property purchases to allow it, because the access point that I think of as immediately is the one that's owned by the county, and that's more of a boat access point. Everyone doesn't have boats. They might want to kayak on the bayou or take a smaller boat out. And so I think one of the ways to do that is to create more access points, number one, and then work with like subdivisions like Bayou Maison and some of the other ones, the name escapes me, making sure that they create access points to the bayou as well.
For those who may not be familiar with it, there's not a lot of details out about the active investigation into what issues with the Galveston, with the Galveston County District Attorney's Office looking into the Dickinson Economic Development Corporation. As it's understood and somewhat reported publicly, is that this is about actions of some board members of kind of overstepping their grounds that may have, at least in the feeling of some, possibly been criminal conduct. And I know that some of those executive sessions you're talking about, that's been what they've been discussing there. Kevin, I know it puts you in a tough position there from your role. I know you can't discuss it as well, but I wanted to give you a chance to address what you know of that investigation and know of things about the EDC right now.
I'm not aware of any investigation. I am aware that there was a complaint filed, but I'm not aware of any investigation behind that complaint. As far as open meetings, I think the contract for our last executive director had expired, been allowed to expire. We elected not to continue that relationship, and we've currently hired an interim executive director. Other than that, whatever they're discussing beyond those two items in executive session of council, I'm not aware of.
And you're talking about Scott Jones, his contract was not renewed.
His contract was not renewed.
Right, gotcha. I just wanted to clarify because that's a more recent development there as well, because it happened right before, as the budget process was taking place there. Obviously, when you talk about economic development, it becomes into something. Charles, you brought this up at the beginning, and tell me again what community you live in Dickinson. I didn't clarify that with you before.
I live in Old Town Dickinson, right off of right near Dietz and Timber Drive.
Gotcha. So when you talk about overlooked communities, when you talk about economic development, there is times, no matter what community you're in, but Dickinson seems to struggle with this. Will give you a chance to do this. Is that communities that have older communities, particularly communities that may not have seen a lot of development, feel overlooked for the newer and shinier communities sometimes in that. But as economic development goes, how do you, if you're elected to council, look at a plan that's more balanced across the board? And not just economic development, infrastructure as well, a CIP plan that makes sure that the roads near Bayou Chantilly get taken care of just as much as the roads get taken care of in the west side or in an older part of Dickinson that may be more established politically.
I kind of lean toward like a more balanced, like you said, a more balanced approach for development and infrastructure. And I say economic development in the center part of the town because there are existing buildings and assets that we have in those areas that can be used to promote, a little bit more economic development in those areas. And if we take an incremental approach, I mean, one street at a time, one block at a time, one neighborhood at a time, we can take care of a lot of that infrastructure ourselves without having to have our hand out to the state or the federal government. We don't need to. It's not a sprint. It's a marathon. And if we can do that incrementally from the center of town and work our way outwards, then we can build Dickinson into a thriving community that people drive through and they look around and they say, this is a place that I'd like to raise my family.
Charles, as kind of a broader perspective, though, and this is what I'm going to go around with everyone about, is how do you make policies? What's your philosophy on policies that benefit all, but also to make sure that there's more of a diverse investment by the city on infrastructure needs, on when certain amenities are put in and the like, that there is a closer look at, hey, here's a community that, if you look at the census population, maybe, lower income, but could use this amenity too, and we don't want to overlook them. Or, hey, we're not going to, this road's not been fixed because, it may not have much traffic there, but if we fix it, maybe it does get more development out of that. How would you, as a council member, make sure there's more, the lack of a better term, diversity in how infrastructure, in how economic development, how does that become more balanced across the community?
You have to kind of, basically, sometimes you just have to kind of get out of that council office and take a cruise around Dickinson and look and see where these infrastructure problems are lying, and we have to have a better engagement with the community. I mean, the city council and formal approach to engagement is great, but we have to meet these people where they live and talk to people where they are. We can't ask them, do you need more lights? Do you need more roads? We need to ask different questions. We need to find out, when you walk your dog, do you feel safe? When you open up your business in the morning, is there enough light? We need to ask livable questions. And when you ask livable questions and you get out and you talk to people and you realize what the city needs, then you have a better idea of a more holistic approach to infrastructure, economic development, and putting in more parks and all those things. But you really can't, sit in the city council office and in the mayor's office and look at numbers and figures all day and decide that the best approach for infrastructure and developing the city. You got to get out and walk around or drive around. I challenge people to go to the high school at 6:30 in the morning when I drop my son off and walk down the street on your way to the school with no sidewalks. If you're a child and you're walking down the street, then you understand that something has to be done.
Yeah, driving by there when the school's in session doesn't give that impression. It's the boots on the ground that makes it. Kevin, Charles makes a good point. The boots on the ground. You've done that. I've seen personally, but in many ways. But there's often a time. I remember once someone running for council was brought up a problem, went over and looked at it in a neighborhood. He said, "I had no idea this was a problem," and he had lived there most of his life in Dickinson. So how do you get the boots on the ground, and probably the better term, as Charles put it, the holistic approach, so that all of the cities uplifted as improvements are made, and not just one section over another?
So, I think as council people, we need to be approachable first, and I think that's a real big key to being able to communicate with staff. So we recently hired our new city manager, and he seems to me very approachable, very boots on the ground. He's outside often dealing with citizens and talking with them, listening to concerns, and you depend on those guys as council people. We're volunteers. Most of us have normal day jobs that we have to go to, so we're very dependent on those professionals that we employ for the benefit of our city to be out there and be our boots on the ground, per se.
Gotcha. Fred, same question to you here. How do you bring a more holistic approach, and how do you know more about what goes on to improve the city, to lift the city up in projects, infrastructure, economic development, the whole across the board as a member of council?
Well, when I started this journey, we'll call it, of running for this position, I started going and knocking on doors, kind of old school, and I went all over town. I talked to people, I've been all over this town. I've been in areas that I didn't even know that were part of Dickinson, and so what I do is I tell them who I am. I'm running for office, and what are your major concerns? And what would you like for city council to do for you? Because city council exists to make this a better place for you to live. And so what I've heard from them is, mainly drainage, drainage, pick the trash up, and I didn't hear some things that also are incredibly important, like clean water, making sure that our infrastructure is solid. That we have backup generators for, various, substations, cell towers for communication during the hurricanes. That City Hall also has backup generators. But talking to the people and asking them what they want. And then, of course, the people who know me, I've put it all in a spreadsheet, as usual. And,
sorry to laugh at you.
I know. Well, instead of memorizing it, I document it. But drainage is, 90% of the response I hear is drainage. And of course, as what was mentioned earlier, the city is well known for, Harvey. That's what the nation saw, and I believe it was more than 70% of every home in the community was impacted during Harvey. So that's obviously a very important issue. But there are other issues like not just getting out to the community to ask, what they want done, and then hope that city council approaches it in an efficient manner, so you actually provide the solutions that they're asking for. But there were some things I did in Texas City that were it was related to something as simple as the concert in the park. They turned one of the parks, and they had some concerts out there, and I helped them, change that a bit to have music come out once a week during the summer months, and it was free for the community, and people that didn't associate with each other or weren't aware of things that the city did for them, or all of a sudden, it was very simple, but it was effective. And then some city council members would be out there every now and then. People were bringing their families, and it feels like more of a community with those things. And that lends itself to the economic development and possible, acquisition of properties on the bayou to extend the parks that we have, since the bayou is not our only resource, but it's one of the largest. We want to bring, businesses as well. So we're not just about water. We're not just about the bayou and flooding during Harvey. We also have a lot of land and tax, incentives. So anyway, but, to your original question, that is how you do it. And you get out and you talk to the people and you ask them, what do they want? And then you close your mouth and open your ears and listen. And then if necessary, you put it in a spreadsheet.
Johnny, I know this is a subject matter that's near and dear to your heart. I've heard you talk about this for years, about bringing the city up across the board.
Yes.
And again, I bring that up because, and I know I'm going to your wheelhouse on this, because I have heard this from you for the longest time, but you're not alone in this comment. And it is the untold problem, I think, that does not get talked about in Dickinson, that we'll talk about economic development. They'll listen to everyone that comes to city council. I got this great business I want to bring in. I'm going to do this. But the topic that doesn't get brought up a lot, or gets short-shrifted a little bit, is the fact of, hey, we need to do a project to bring up all of the community. And if we're going to put in this here, we need to put it over here too. And not necessarily has to be apples to apples, but at least an effort is made. And so I want to give you a chance to address that too, how to rise the city.
Certainly. I would say that first off, I pastor a church in one of those communities in Moore's Addition. Faith UMC is in Moore's Addition. So I see a lot of those who feel left out. My church the property sits at the corner of Avenue F and 22nd Street, both of which are gravel. So lately when people come to visit me at church and they have to turn down 22nd Street or have to turn down F to get to my church, they say, well, I see why you're running for city council. There's no question there. I would say, as a part of my job, because I am a pastor, I was an engineer before that, But part of my job, I have to work with all kinds of people, and being approachable is a skill set that is needed. You definitely have to be approachable, and you have to go to the people sometimes. You know for yourself, TJ, sometimes where you can count on one hand the number of people who are at a city council meeting that are not there because they have to give a report or because they work for the city or their press. So it's clear that everybody's not going to come to city council. You have to be willing to go out there. How I would do it is an approach I take when I'm working in other places. If I'm at the table, I want to ask who is not at the table that should be. Who's not at the table that should be, and how do we go about making sure if they can't get to the table that we still keep them in mind when we make those decisions to make sure that a rising tide actually lifts all boats. You can also ask questions in business practices, looking at contractors for the city. Who are their subcontractors? What is the diversity potential for hiring subcontractors as well, or minority-owned businesses? You can also, I like that the staff is approachable. One of the things that I noticed about Theo Melanson when he was being interviewed was that he was a very approachable person, and it was long lasting because we spent a little bit of time with him so that it didn't wear off. He wasn't showing just his representative. And so that was one of the things I liked about him in the hiring process, that and his fundraising capability. But in terms of diversity and that you ask who's there, you ask who is not there that would still be affected by those decisions, and you operate with them in mind, and you go to those people and not just expect them to come to you.
And it goes into, and I'll give everyone a chance to just kind of chime in on this one. It goes into, I think, an issue, as I said, I have heard year after year after year after year. Every time I do one of these forums, we get the questions left and right about this, and I'm looking at our viewers here, but also I hear it afterwards, is that whole approach of who's not at the table. We know who's at the table, but a lot of times we don't ask that question of who's not here that needs to be here, and it takes that aggressiveness to go beyond that. And I'm also glad you pronounced Leo's last name because I would butcher it every single time. I'm still trying to get that Cajun name right ever since I met him when he was up in Dayton. So I told him, I said, I'm just going to call you Theo, and I'm not going to try to do the rest of that. The new city manager that's come in now. And we do want to we're going to speed this along here because we talked a lot of things, but it also gets into public safety in the community. When you're talking about fair across the city, we are seeing more accountability being demanded in communities across the country and across our area about policing. And I want to bring up something because when we want to start this conversation, they can say, the defund the police movement. Let's just be honest here. That has never been broached as a subject, honestly, in the city of Dickinson at all, in that terms. There has been brought up about accountability in policing in the city. The city of Dickinson was one of the first marches in which we saw after the George Floyd, where folks were calling for accountability. And we should point out these folks were marching in a hurricane, a tropical storm, I should say, at the time when they first did that for that. But let me go with you on this, Kevin, is policing and community. We hear a lot about, yes, we need more police officers on the street. That's a tough job to fill right now as it begins. But where do you see is the strengths of the policing in Dickinson, and where are the areas that you see it needs to improve, in particular in relationships to the community as a whole?
I don't have any issues with our police department. I think our police department is strong. I do believe that we could always use more patrolmen out there on our streets, monitoring even traffic, school district. In our school zones. But I don't think I really have much problem with our police department. I think they do a great job for this city. And I wouldn't say anything negative about them.
I'm not asking to say anything negative, but what do you think areas they could grow, be better at? Not that they're not good at something, but where they could use more resources.
I think they could use a lot of resources. Community outreach is is a big tool. So I mean, being able to have more time to get out into the community and having discussions with students at the school, community events, just being out there and being more visible in those opportunities, just having the people available, those are huge resources for them. Of course, cash is king, and if you don't have much cash, you have some issues. And so finding ways to get grant money in here to resource those guys, providing them the training that they need for everyday work is super important.
Charles, same question to you. Is that if you're elected to council, what areas do you see, well, and not just if you're elected to council, but what areas do you see as the strengths of the Dickinson Police Department and areas that you see that are maybe wanting or need more resources to improve as far as that community police department?
One thing I'd like to say right off, being new to Dickinson, I only have the exposure to the police department that I see, in my neighborhood or down my block. And from what I've seen and what I've experienced with the police department here, that the officers seem to be extremely professional and attempt to treat everyone equitably. Policing in general, I'm sure those guys probably need more funding. We need more officers on the street. Every profession that we have in this country have adapted and altered their training, not just technologically, but to also alter their training based on the social situations of the time. And I think our police department, along with other police departments around the country, need to alter their training a little bit just for that. I don't believe that officers are equipped or trained right now to handle social emergencies or mental health emergencies. I think to place an officer in that situation is really unfortunate. Those guys are out to protect and serve. And when they show up to a situation of a guy that's in mental distress, they're just not equipped to handle that thing. And the protests you were speaking of in the hurricane, and it's just unfortunate that those protests, I love to see those young folks out protesting, because to see them have the desire for something is a good thing to see. But they made the unfortunate decision to throw out the term defund the police. And I don't think that's what's really needed right now. I think that there needs to be an alternative to police in situations where someone is having mental distress. Other than that, I've had nothing but, I've seen and experienced nothing but a positive approach by Dickinson Police.
And we should point out, as I said early on, is that while that topic was thrown out, there was no serious discussion ever within the city about along those terms. And as I've talked to every police chief, including Ron Morales, the chief in Dickinson, they would welcome any type of help on dealing with mental health, mental stress issues for their officers. Fred, I'm going to go to you. Same question. Where do you see the strengths of the Dickinson Police Department, and where would you like to see some improvements along the way to make it more of a community policing department?
Well, I know, a detective on the force. I won't mention names, but I've talked with them and some of the police officers when they've been out to this neighborhood, which is rare. And then to address the defund the police, that's just a terrible misnomer. Essentially, it's a reevaluation of funding for multiple solutions that minimize the total sum of illegal activity without compromising the public's safety. I don't see, and that includes oversight as well. The Dickinson Police Department, I haven't seen any, I have no issues with them. I think they have a hard job to do, as well as the volunteer fire department, first responders. And so, at every entity, every business, every profession is benefited by oversight or taking a step back and reevaluating and saying, can we do this better? Is there a better way of doing this? Community policing that may be an area that they, if they have not already investigated, getting out into the community, essentially the same rules that should be applied to anyone running for office. If you're going to represent the community, you need to get out there and talk with them and find out what they think, because, they're the ones that are voting for you, paying your salary, et cetera. So, but as far as, suggestions for the police, I think the Dickinson police do a fine job in the few instances where they've been over in this neighborhood. They've always been polite and actually helped me save a horse out of 517 one time that got out of its fencing, which was an interesting story I may tell you about some other time. But anyway, overall, the city police here are doing a fine job.
Johnny, same question to you now, sir, about policing in Dickinson. Where does it have its strengths, and where do you see its improvements need to be made?
Yeah, I would say I also have a relationship with some people on the police force. One of the family members of someone on the force is attenders of my church. They're all members of mother, the father, sister, brother, nieces and nephews as well. So I have that relationship. I would say my understanding, one of the things is that they were one of the first police departments in the area to use body cameras. I also like a lot of the community and policing initiatives. The Blue Santa is a great program. The participation in the National Night Out, the Victim Liaison program is something I find pretty interesting as well. Places they can improve. I stumbled into a special call meeting one time when they were talking about city employee benefits, and those could stand to be improved. If you have a family, insurance is a burden with some of the things that are going on. The only other thing, and this is just my critique, I would love to attend the Citizens Police Academy. And it's just my critique personally, but I don't know if I can spare the 12 to 15 weeks in a row to do it right now. But I would love to attend it. I just haven't been able to work that into my schedule, and that's a personal thing, not anything.
Yeah, but we should point out that Dickinson was one of the first to have a Citizens Police Academy. Mm-hmm. I think the first in the region, at least, to have the Alumni Association for the Academy. That's highly active, by the way, we should point out there. Mm-hmm. Thank you all for that part there too. But along with policing here, we've seen some questions about having things for youth and all, and a case that still police have not been able to determine here that just happened recently. A young girl shot and killed. From all accounts, that it was someone playing with a gun, not playing with a gun, playing around with a gun, not playing with a gun. They just shouldn't have had it in the first place. And then she was shot in the back. They still haven't found the gun. They still haven't been able to pin this on them. But it gets into something, and I'll start with you on this, Johnny, as a pastor. You've got youth that are in your church and all. What needs to be done in Dickinson? Because there is more and more youth activity. Now, I don't want to call it criminal, what we would call mischievousness all the way to criminal activity. And I say youth, I'm not just talking about just young kids. I'm talking up into their 20s, that needs to be done in a community to make life better, but also to get through so that we're in a safer community, because we are seeing across the county kind of this grip of shootings that are just taking place. And I wanted to give you your perspective on council. What policies would you try to adopt to help with that?
I feel one of the best ways to help the community is education and training. It doesn't have to be a 2-year degree. It could be training for some sort of trade as well, because everybody's not meant to go to college. Some people, we saw after the freeze the need for plumbers, electricians, and carpenters. They came at a premium right after the winter freeze. I think one of the things is community-based programs, community support for education. The school to prison pipeline is another subject that is near and dear to my heart. And I know that for-profit prisons are using academic performance and family, or the lack of academic performance rather, and family dynamics to determine as early as third grade whether or not this particular child is going to end up in jail. And so we have to do things to try to reach out. And so what I would do as counsel is do everything I could to support some youth-based community programs that can help them, and also be an ally to all the educational components of the city. That's why for me, it was a pleasure to serve on the Dickinson ISD Strategic Planning Committee as well, because I value education. But I think those are some of the ways to address it.
Thank you, John. Kevin, how about you? I mean, we hear this. I think every election you run into is about we need more activities to give the youth to do. There's lack of gym space. Yes, we have Paul Hopkins Park and all, but that's pretty much it. I mean,
there's nothing going on at Paul Hopkins Park.
Yeah.
This is where I believe we can develop some opportunities with the school district to develop some after-school programs. The fact that these kids don't have anything else to do tends to lend them to other issues. I myself was an at-risk student in high school, and I found the best way for me to straighten myself up was to actually be encouraged to be involved in programs at school. And I had a lot of support at school. The ROTC program, which I was also a part of there, was tremendous help for me. You get some leadership-based training out of there, some extra guidance, and bringing that, it gives an opportunity for parents to be involved in their kids' lives too. So I'm very supportive of an idea to get with the school district to create as many after-school programs for each level of adolescence as you can. All you want to do is foster good behavior and good product out of the school district.
Gotcha. Fred, same question to you.
I somewhat agree with Kevin. Keeping myself busy in high school, was key. One of the things that I found for myself, at least, was physical activity. I was cycling. Still cycle quite a bit. It's a great, efficient hobby, I guess you could call it, and so you're out there, you're doing your body good, and it's occupying time. That's a big part of it. I'd also look at, educational, options besides college, like the trades, maybe coordinate with the local school system, the high school, the junior high, and have experts in the field come in. In my case, I do know that the astronauts, they visit schools all over the area. And, of course, the astronauts have a lot of star power with it. But, kids are in, that sticks with you. I mean, there's some things that I remember happening, meeting an astronaut when I was in high school had a big effect on me. So anyway, things like that. And it doesn't have to just be astronauts. It could be plumbers and electricians coming and showing them, how to, take care of the house. If they're, a member of a single parent household, ways they can help their mom if something happens with the plumbing. I know my mom would be amazed if I was able to help her fix the sink, in school. But anyway, I think you understand what I'm trying to get at. You have people in the community that are successful in their field, whatever that field is, whether you're a plumber or an astronaut, and come in and share their time. And at the same time, when they're doing that, they're occupying these kids' time, and may even cause a switch to flip, and may be something that they're interested in doing later on in life. And then as far as, those after school activities, the school system does have, the basketball courts, tennis courts that are across the street from me, and all those facilities, the parks. Paul, the park really doesn't have that there. I don't think any of the parks really have like a recreational facilities here in the city of Dickinson. So that may be something that we could look at adding on later. To provide another location for students that aren't near those schools, like on the weekend, where they can gather and, get out and get some exercise and keep themselves occupied, doing constructive activities.
And Charles, we'll have you wrap up with the last question here on that tonight.
All the other candidates hit on some great solutions for a problem that, like you said, has been gradually progressing, not just in Galveston County, but all over. And my first thought, the whole thing is to, if you're on the city council, or if you're the mayor, or if you just a city engineer, that carries a lot of weight. When you walk into an organization and you say, "Hi, I'm the city council member for Dickinson County, and I'd like to approach you about maybe adopting, somebody, not adopting them, but mentoring those kids." And I'm not talking about just old fogies like us. We're talking about trade businesses here in town that have guys that are 25 and 26 years old. That are these guys' peers. They're not going to listen to us. They'll listen to someone that's 25 or 26 that says, "You come by here, a Saturday morning or whatever days they're open, and we'll start to train you to be able to take care of yourself and to exert some of that pent up energy and frustration that these kids have." That's all it is, in most of the time, and it comes out in hugely devastating fashions with gunplay and violence. But as the elder statesman in the community, we need to go to these businesses. We need to go to the nonprofit organization, and we need to throw the weight of our title around and just say, "Hey, I'm the city councilman, and I was wondering if you guys could open up a couple of spots in your business for a couple of kids to come in on the weekends, learn how to do something, and keep themselves off the street and pick up a trade and be able to be positive members of the community and give them something to look forward to in their future life." Because a lot of them, they just see they have no future and they see no future. And I think that those are everybody's hit on some good ideas. We just need to use the weight of our title and see if we can get some of that stuff implemented.
Gentlemen,
TJ, I just need to step away for a second to my battery's pretty low. I'll be right back.
Yeah, make it quick because you're the first one up for that. Gentlemen, thanks for coming on with us tonight. I know, I always promise everyone, we'll only take an hour. I'm starting to think now that when I say that, I'm really just putting out the hoping you'll stick around.
You're a politician.
It's one of those things when we get, and Kevin knows this. This is his third one to do with me on this thing. When we get into a topic, this is why I don't like having the set time on things. I think we've got a lot of comments from people tonight. They were just impressed with hearing from all four of you tonight. And definitely you have your fan clubs out there. Each of you does as well. But that folks are getting to hear your actual answers and the context of what you have to say. And that's why we do this. So thank you all very much for that. As we said earlier, we had selected in what order everyone would go to make their final pitch. Up to 3 minutes. I stress up to. You don't have to use the whole 3 minutes if you don't want to. I'll give you when it's about 30 seconds out. You'll just hear me say 30 seconds. And Fred, you're up first, so we'll let you take it away with your closing comments.
Right. And first of all, and I forgot to say this at the beginning, and I apologize, but TJ, thank you very much for doing an awesome job hosting this. My name is Fred Linton, and I'm from Texas City, Texas. I'm born and raised there. And as I stated earlier, I'm running for political office because I grew up in a family that impressed upon me the importance of giving back to the community. And public service is one way to do that. I solve, as I mentioned earlier, also, I solve technical problems for a living. and feel that I can assist the community by applying that skill set to, making well-informed decisions and helping those around me, helping make the community of Dickinson a better place to live for all of us. As was stated during this forum, checking on census data and reading the flood mitigation plans for the city, and those documents, they have their place. That information has its place, even my spreadsheets. But we also need to get out to the people and talk with them and listen. Most importantly, listen to them. Ask them, what would you like the city government to do to make your life better here in the city of Dickinson? And after speaking with many people in the community over the past few years, the primary issues mentioned were drainage and streets. Therefore, the primary goal is to ensure the community has the best drainage solution possible, and as well as oversight of maintenance of that solution. This will allow for increased protection from natural disasters, but also needs to include redundancy for water treatment, communication systems, and our overall emergency response capabilities in coordination with Galveston County Emergency Management. Also on the agenda would be investigating innovative approaches to increasing economic prosperity, community safety, and community development. I look forward to working with the citizens of Dickinson, as well as the members of the Dickinson City Council and City Manager, to implement solutions to make the community of Dickinson one of the best places to live on the Gulf Coast. And on a personal note, my family instilled in me at a young age and have been very involved in the local community, and I'm very proud of what they've done. And I hope to be able to give back in the same way that they have and help their local community be a better place to live. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. And also thanks to the other candidates for giving their time and pursuing this endeavor. I think it's an honorable endeavor. You're muted again, TJ.
Said good job to you there. You came in. I'm trying not to interrupt you guys and while you guys are going here.
You're always muted when you're giving me compliments.
Yeah, that's it. Wake up. Okay, it's hard for me, Fred. Sorry. Kevin Edmonds up now. You have up to 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you. My name's Kevin Edmonds. I've only been in Dickinson for about 6 years, but I've really come to love this town and what it has to offer. The people here are absolutely amazing. And I look forward to being able to serve you in a higher capacity as a council person. I look forward to being able to make our city a point of destination. Events, restaurants. It is super important that we get this opportunity, and utilizing the bayou and finding ways to capitalize on that asset would be a strategic opportunity for us to approach. And I just want to say thank you for letting me have this opportunity to visit with you. I want to say thank you for allowing me to serve in my current capacity as a EDC director and on your board of adjustments. And I look forward to being able to continue my service to the city in any capacity that I'm allowed. Please remember to vote for me, Kevin Edmonds, on Election Day. And also, I just want to remind everybody one more time, early voting does start Monday and runs through Friday, and then runs again the following Monday before actual November 2nd, Election Day.
Right, October the 18th to the 29th on weekdays. You see the scroll there. And for more information on that, you can go to galvestonvotes.org to get more information there. Johnny, you're up next, and you get up to 3 minutes for you, sir.
Thanks. Again, thank you again, TJ and Dawn, for giving us all this opportunity, and I commend the other candidates as well. This is not an easy endeavor. I am one that wants to serve the people. I've been serving the people as treasurer for the Galveston County Long-Term Recovery Group. I've been serving the people as president of the Dickinson Management District, where we have funded road repair, we funded the fire department, we funded the police department. We are here as part of the management district to improve the quality of life for the residents of Dickinson. And I would like to continue to do that. I would like to continue to serve in a larger capacity, working with the rest of City Council and the staff of the City of Dickinson to make this place better. I am for the people. I see those who sometimes feel like they are the least, the last, and the lost, and I want to be able to be the voice for those who are the least, the last, and the lost. So I may be last on the ballot, but I want to be number one in each one's heart. Thank you.
You're muted again. Another compliment.
Now it's complimentary bread, actually, and it muted just automatically does that. So, Johnny, thanks a lot. We do appreciate it as well. And I ask all the candidates to hang around even when Charles is done with his final 3 minutes, because I'm going to bring Dawn back on with us to wrap things up here again. But Charles, you have now up to 3 minutes to make your final pitch to the voters before early voting begins on Monday.
For those of you who may have caught the tail end of our forum here, my name is Charles Marcus, and of course I'm running for the empty seat, position 1 at the City Council. And TJ has done a really good job of eliciting quite a bit of information from the candidates. So I'm going to kind of end this by thanking everyone that's online listening, and anybody that happens to pick up the recording later to listen through it, because it's been a long 2 hours, and we really appreciate your time, because there's basically 2 things you can't get back once you've given those things up, and that's your vote and your time. And I'd just like to thank everyone for coming in, and please get out and vote. You got 4 really good candidates here. Hopefully you've gotten enough information to make an informed decision. And we'd like to have a huge turnout, because Dickinson deserves it.
Charles, thank that. Now my mic's on. I'm just making sure that Charles, thanks for that as well. And again, all of you, thank you for coming in tonight and lending your time. And Charles, I mentioned it here. Once immediately, as soon as we're done with this becomes available. This entire forum becomes available for you to watch here on I-45 now. And we have a special elections section too you can go to find it a little bit easier to go and watch. And don't forget that we will, on the night of November 2nd, be covering election night. Obviously, too, just to point out, 4 candidates. Someone's going to have to give 50% of the vote plus 1 in order to avoid a runoff. So there's a good chance that 2 of you and I are going to be talking again sometime in probably December. So getting ready for Christmas, yay, and voting at the same time for that election. I always enjoy doing Christmas time voting forms. But anyway, good luck to each of you. Good job tonight, and great concise answers to you. Thanks for coming in. We do appreciate it. And now Dawn King, the president of the Dickinson Chamber of Commerce, comes back on. Now, Dawn, I've been watching you in the background. There is a dog wandering around in your room there with you, and you know I'm a dog lover. Let's see this. There we go.
This is Kudzu.
Kudzu.
Kudzu. Yeah.
Kudzu has got the most votes of the night. I can tell you that right now. If one of y'all had just gotten kudzu in your campaign, it was a guaranteed win at that point. Any final words from you here tonight, Dawn?
Well, I just want to say, I'll tell you what I saw. I saw 4 men who love the city of Dickinson, and I love the city of Dickinson, and I'm so pleased to see that. That's what we need more of. And I know there are a lot more of them out there, a lot more of us out there who love Dickinson and want to serve. I want to remind you to please go out and vote, just like everyone else said. That's so important for our community. Vote for the person that spoke best to you and to your needs. But also, I want to remind everyone that there are so many opportunities to be a part of supporting the city of Dickinson. So many of those people who are on that banner out at the gazebo. Those civic organizations, all of them on there, they all participated, and they need citizens to come and be a part of that so that we can continue as a community to do these great things. Council positions, that's the hardest one, and it takes the most time and it takes the most commitment. And I'm so grateful to these gentlemen who are willing to even just step up and do it. But it's not the only place that you can serve in our community. And we have a group of people here today. I know you heard every one of their hearts, and they love the community. And if you love the community, then step up and find a way to serve. And always remember to support your local Chamber of Commerce.
And if you want to find a way to get involved in the chamber, DickinsonTXChamber.com.
Yes, and you don't have to be a business to be a part. We have volunteers. We have individuals who come and want to serve through that capacity. So just serve your community. And if you see these men out in the community, please shake their hand and thank them for stepping up, because this is a hard thing to do.
It is. And I'm just glad Kevin,
Yeah.
we didn't have one freeze up on you tonight.
Not on me, but on
Once you
you.
watched our last forum, I was just dying how many times before. Thank you for that, Kevin, for coming in tonight.
It was horrible last time, but thank you.
Yeah, and so it's great too. And Dawn, let's remind. I know it's October, and we don't want to necessarily talk about Christmas right now, but the Holiday Light Reimbursement Grant Program, Light Up the Town. Tell everyone about that again.
Yes, that's so exciting, and it's so important to the community, because we have, I don't know what the numbers are, but like 35,000 people at least that come into the city of Dickinson during Festival of Lights. Well, they go in the parking lot up at I-45, they get on a bus, they drive in to Festival of Lights, they look at that, and they leave again. And so the idea behind Festival of Lights, we need some assistance. We need something that supports that. So if you have a business on anywhere in Dickinson, but especially on the main street, 517 and Highway 3, please consider being a part of that, being a part of Light Up the Town. We want people to drive through our community. We want them to see our beautiful town. We want them to look over and see your business so that they can come and remember how professional you look and how great you look, and come and do business with you later. And remember that if you participate in the Light Up the Town, you can receive $500 back from either the EDC or from the management district. I get all of the applications and I have them and send them to the different entities. But it's a great opportunity. We have people that are participating. This will be their third year, and their lights just get bigger and bigger and bigger. And some of it is so awesome. So please participate if you're a business. If you're not a business and you're listening and you'd like to come and just enjoy the lights, they will be up by December 1st, and they will be on every night through January 1st. And they don't have to be on then January 2nd. So it's an opportunity to drive by and see our beautiful little town and get to know our businesses and enjoy, drive through and get something from Dairy Queen and drive around and have a good time in the city of Dickinson.
And again, if you want more information on what's happening in Dickinson and to be more involved, DickinsonTXChamber.com. A lot of activities there, including you can find out more by clicking on about not only Light Up the Town, but also about the Save the Gazebo effort. We're going to have a larger profile on that next week as well. Also, if you're starting resources there where you're like, Kunzu is having some fun in the background there.
And let me remind you, if you're looking on the website for those things, be sure and just click around. We have a large, about 42,000 people a year look at our website, and there's information about tourism. There's information about every activity that we have in the community, Italian Festival. All of those things are on our website. So if you have any question about Dickinson, I'll bet you that you can find it on our website. So once you come for that, please spend some time on our website and get to know us. You'll be very pleased with what you find.
And we should point out that coming up as well, is it November the 6th, I think, is the Market on the Bayou, Farmers Market.
That's the last one. Yeah, that's the last one.
Come on out. You can get your Christmas shopping done. We have it there on the site for you. Check out Market on the Bayou, the Farmers Market happening November the 6th from 10 to 2. And you want to check that out. It's right there on well, it says Avenue E, but it's it's a high profile location for you there, and so make sure you get out there and enjoy yourself the first Saturday of November.
Yes, and there was so much talk by these gentlemen tonight about the town center area. That's exactly why we chose to do an activity like this. We don't do galas for the city, for our Chamber of Commerce like other chambers do. This is our major fundraiser, and we chose something that we could raise funds for the chamber and keep it going and also give something back to the community. But we have it on that property on Highway 3 to determine, this year was a specific goal to determine if people would come to that area for an activity, if they would use the downtown area as a gathering place. And we have anywhere from over 1,000 people to 850 people a time that come to that market. So
plus it's a way to shop local, and we've heard about it's going to be harder to get some of the Christmas gifts. Go there, because if it's there, you can buy it then and have it for your Christmas gift, right?
We bring in over 30 businesses a month.
That's great.
To the city of Dickinson. So thank you, PJ.
Thank you, Dawn. I appreciate it. Kudzu, thank you, too. I heard you in the background there. As soon as he started barking, my 4 dogs all tripped up and looked in my office here there as well. Kevin, Charles, Fred, Pastor Simpson, thank y'all for coming on with us here tonight. We do appreciate you all joining us again. Early voting starts on Monday, continues to the 29th. Election day is Tuesday. A lot of times it gets confusing for folks, but it's a November election, so it's a Tuesday election versus a Saturday election is what would normally happen in a municipal race. Thank you all, and thank you for watching.